You are listening to another Always Moto production. The Always Moto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the Always Moto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. I'm not a doctor, but I'm a physiotherapist, and this is episode 117 of the Always Moto podcast, proudly brought to you by Leatt Moto Australia and TechnicMotorsport.com. Now, we are trying to be here on the YouTube channel as well, live, and we're just obviously having some streaming difficulties straight off the bat, which is awesome. But we're going to push on with the record and see what happens, because this is the first time that we are trying to stream and record a podcast all at once, and it might just be a fact that the internet can't keep up with us. We'll see how this goes. So we're going to have to work this out along the way. So let's get into this thing. This is the Always Moto podcast. I am David Hogan, the Australian physiotherapist that knows these injuries and fitness needs of the sport of supercross and motocross, and we're here to run through all the things in our sport, particularly the injuries and those fitness needs. We are in the depths of the clinic, throwing strapping tape anywhere it will stick. If you haven't heard our podcast before, you can check it out on the YouTube channel, which we'd like you to subscribe to, obviously. But you can check out some of our past shows. This is our normal sort of run-through intro parts here that we just sort of make a bit of a mockery of all the fact that people claim to be doctors and they're not. I know what I am. I'm a physio, and I know that these injuries happen and how these things happen because I ride bikes as well. So if you haven't checked out our previous stuff, you should do. It's got some interesting content out there and about. Our camera position obviously here as well. I'm just going to look up to it every now and then, but my notes are here. Trying to keep on scored. This is a one-man band over here, so we've got this thing going in all sorts of directions right now. All right, this week's show, we're going to talk SuperMotocross Playoffs that is happening round one this weekend at ZMAX Dragway in Charlotte. We're going to cover some of those returning rider updates for this week in our emergency department segment. We've got plenty of things, a bunch of other little things coming along as well. So we'll see where we end up. We'll see how this goes, but we'll work that out from there. Now, I'm going to try and throw this over here. We're just going to try and see if we can get this YouTube creator thing, because it seems like YouTube has decided to not respond, which is fan-damn-tastic, which I don't know why. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. All right, let's keep going. So, hey, Moto fans. This episode of the Always Moto podcast is brought to you by Leatt Moto Australia. That's right up here, Leatt Moto Australia. The ultimate gear and protection solution for riders seeking top-notch safety and style. From head to toe, Leatt Moto has you covered with innovative helmets, goggles, body armour and more. Head over to leattmoto.com.au and gear up for your next ride. And our show is also supported by these lovely people, TechnicMotorsport.com, Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167 3D Printing, and you'll hear more about these companies as we go throughout the shows. And we also have deals of these people available in our show notes that you can check out as well. There's discount codes, there's links to get to them as well. There's a few other companies that we don't always mention here that we've had some product reviews and stuff on. They're all in there as well. Along with where you can find some of our written and other content that we put together over on the motocrossnetwork.com and fullnoise.com.au. So two other sites. Now, this shirt that I am wearing here, it is an Always Moto t-shirt. It's a lovely t-shirt. Now, I always say you might want to be able to rock one of these t-shirts at your next race. That would help us support the show here and continue to get this show going around. These t-shirts are $25 in Australian dollars for anyone international viewers watching. They're $25 plus postage and handling. Get one and rock it at your next race. Now, if you are too sexy for a t-shirt, that's okay. We have an option for you. You can make a donation to our show via PayPal, and that link is available in the show notes. Now, if you want to order one of these t-shirts, that's good too. Email us at info@alwaysmoto.com. Put t-shirt on the subject line. We'll get back to you about payment via PayPal, and we'll get that all sorted out. So good to see that is some support that can go on as well. Now, let's take a quick little moment here. I'm going to have a quick look up on the screen here. Close this, trying to figure out what is going on. Error, YouTube not receiving enough video to maintain smooth. Stream. Oh, well, we're streaming, but maybe not as well as we could be. So let's see what we can do there. I'm going to make a little... we're going to make an adjustment on the fly. We could break everything. So let's... oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We've got it going. We'll see what happens. It might not be the best stream, but we apologize if that's the case. We're going to get this thing better. This is, like I said, the first crack at this streaming live and running the recording for the audio as well. All right, enough intro talk. Let's get into this show. Now, Super Motocross is here. Round 1 is here. Plenty of riders are coming back. But let's talk about the riders that have qualified for this thing here this weekend. Obviously, the plan from the AMA this year is that the top 20 riders in combined points qualify straight into the main event, they're calling it. And 21st through 30th are then qualified into the LCQ and have to go to that LCQ each and every week of the 3 rounds. Now, that's all well and good, but I've been calling for this for a little while now, that we need to tighten up the numbers that are qualifying straight in and that are available into the LCQ. Because our sport is such a physical sport and such a long season, we have plenty of injuries across the year. We end up doing this same thing last year as this year. We end up scrambling, trying to find riders to fill those 30 gate available positions across both classes. And what ends up happening is we end up calling up guys that didn't qualify in the 30. We're going down the list, trying to find people if they're fit and healthy and able to get the bike to the race. And that's not what this should be. This should be a prestigious event that they have qualified for, and that is something that only the best of the best get into. It shouldn't be a case of, you've 30th, 8th, whatever it is. You're getting a call, do you reckon you can come out? No, I could probably put a bike together and, make my way out there in the van or something. That's not how this should be. This should be a prestigious thing to make, and you should be well and truly capable of getting yourself there with some support from a team, etc., to be making this, happen to the best of their abilities. Now, no offense to these guys here, but we've got down to 36th place has been able to be invited into the LCQ for the 250s in Lux Turner. Now, again, no offense to Lux Turner, great rider. But to be called up to ARCs to come to something that you're meant to qualify into, not the greatest way of doing it. Same in the 450s. We've got the 38th place, Cade Clayson. Again, nothing against Cade. Cade's a great rider. He can capable of qualifying in if he does a few more events and stuff too. But again, he's been called up to try and fill the slots that guys have either ridden across 2 classes, or out injured. There's a bunch of different reasons here, but I want to see this a bit tighter. My suggestion on this, let's make this either a 12 or 15, somewhere in that range. 12 to 15 riders qualify into the main event. They're guaranteed in. Somewhere back from there, another 8 to 10 positions can be available for LCQs. That way, then we're only at a maximum of about 25. I'd like to see it around that 22 mark as the ones that are automatically in. That way, it leaves us about that somewhere, 5 to 8 positions that can be classed as like a wild card or a bit of a qualified in from outside of the AMA, so that we can start to capture this, as the Americans like to call everything a World Series. Actually make it into a bit of a World Series. Have some of the series in other nations as qualifying affiliates that can have then a champion from the Australian Championship or the Canadian Championship or the British Championship, or even if we can get all things to line up and the heavens and earths and sponsors and contracts to all line up and we can get the top 3 or 4 from MXGP to come across. But let's have this bit of a worldwide qualification process that then they're an affiliate of the AMA for this particular series to try and boost the numbers out into other champions and have that build up. And that would then truly bring in all the media sources from all around the world, because they're going to have a rider to affiliate with that series and really make this a professional top tier qualification playoff event. That's my suggestions for all this. But we'll see how this progresses. Obviously, this is only year 2 of all of this Super Motocross playoff situation. And there's been progress along the way. And obviously, things are moving along as they understand how things are going, how things are improving. But let's just see how this all continues to go as things... We'll shut this down, actually. As things, obviously they understand how it's working better, they'll improve it. And they have last year. Maybe they'll hear things like this suggestion and improve things a bit further. This isn't a complaint or a criticism. This is just a suggestion that I would like to see things, because my side of things with the injuries, where I'm looking at all these guys getting injured, I've got a list of, over 100 guys that have got injured throughout 2024. That makes it difficult to get 30 fit guys at one particular point at the end of the season. So let's just see what else we can do. Make it into something a bit more of a prestigious qualification. Only a select group of guys have been able to get into this, that sort of situation. Now let's talk about ZMAX Dragway itself. And my personal view on this one is that it's an okay venue, but it's not one of my favorites, and there's something about it that makes it just a bit awkward in shape, size, viewing, lap times, passings, all that sort of stuff. The fact of the drag strips, and there's 4 drag strips for those that aren't aware. In a general stadium, there'd be 2 drag strips, but in this one, there's actually 4 lanes with concrete barriers down the middles. Now, that's all well and good for drag racing. And in this general sense, for moto, it would be all right, because obviously we can build things out of the dirt berms over the concrete barricades. But when we sort of stick to those 4 lanes and just make U-turns up and over the things and come down and do U's back and forth, we haven't really got creative in our production of the track design. So it sort of then funnels into this one line, follow the leader sort of situation, because there's no creativity availability in the corners as such. Now, obviously, when they get out into the open area at the end of the drag strip that's outside of the stadium seating, there's more potential for that. But last year, and similar in this year, the track is so fast in that section that it makes it also difficult to get on top of somebody to pass them as well. So something very difficult to try and, every time they build a track like this in a supercross, in a super motocross, they're building a track, it's man-made, to get all these things critically done and done well, so that there's all the aspects covered of, creative track, fast track, slow track, passing abilities. It's hard to do that. But I feel like they need to go away from just sticking in the lanes of the drag strips and try and maybe even zigzag, diagonally across things to try and open up some ability to pass. But we'll see how it goes. That's just my thoughts on it. I do like the fact that there is a stadium length down a fair section of it. The only problem with that I see is that if you're up one end of it, you have a very limited view. Unlike when you're watching, say, a traditional supercross in a football stadium, you are able to basically see the entire track. But obviously, at a motocross venue, and this is a combination for super motocross, at a motocross venue, you'll only see maybe 3/4 at best. And that's at a really good viewing track. So I get that this is sort of a combination, but I think you want to be able to see more of it. And if they aren't able to get as much of it, then they need to do things like have big screens that the spectators can watch from their seats at one end of the venue to help them see the other end of the venue. We'll have to see how that goes, and if they're able to do those sorts of things this week, those things won't be known about until you actually get into the track to see how it's all working out. All right, what else is happening in the world of moto before we get to our general topics here in the emergency department? Well, the news today came out that Joey Savacci is split from his ride with Triumph. Unfortunately for Joey, a couple of things have come into play here, as they've mentioned throughout this press release that came out this morning. And that's around, a lot of it is around the fact that it's a 250 and Joey doesn't have Supercross eligibility for the 250 anymore. They've tried to petition the AMA, but that just hasn't come off for Joey. Now, for whatever reason, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the reason of him being ineligible, but he is ineligible now. So the fact that that is there is a problem, and it means he has to sit out half of the season. Now, he had a decent go at it in the outdoors, but obviously the bike being a new bike, they also then had some dramas mechanically that left him probably not achieving what he wanted to achieve in that step back to the 250 class. And the inconsistency of finishing motos and then not finishing motos doesn't lead him to have a consistent progressive build over the time of his racing. So I can see why Joey's looked elsewhere to go back to the 450 class. We'll hear more about that as a confirmed run here shortly, but we believe it's with a team into the World Supercross and a potentially Australian Supercross and an American side of things as well. So hopefully it'll be a good move, because Joey's had the rough end of the stick in terms of rides ever since he moved out of that 250 class because of that eligibility. He had an okay first season, but then it was this temporary situation. And from then on, it's just sort of gotten out of hand in terms of the ride availabilities for him. It hasn't gone well at any means at all. So, look, unfortunate news for Joey in Triumph. That does only leave Jalik Swole for Triumph in Super Motocross, but they will be bringing in some more guys here shortly as soon as the season's over for 2025, so they'll be revamping there. There are news that the 450 from Triumph is a little bit delayed at this point. They were already meant to sort of be talking about it, potentially being able to see it in December, but I believe that that's going to be not till some point in next year now, so we'll see how that plays out. Maybe Joey comes back when the 450 is available. Who knows? But we'll see. For now, we'll wait and see what Joey comes out as his next ride. All right, Team USA has finally been announced. This has been obviously talked about in a lot of media sources already. We haven't talked about it yet here since on the Always Moto podcast since its announcement. But it's going to be Chase Sexton, Aaron Plessinger, and Chance Hymas. That means that there's no Eli Tomac and no Hayden Deegan in this team. Now, make of that what you will, but it feels like that the star guys sort of paired up, and when one wasn't going to make it, the other one decided to not go as well. And then obviously that's probably a team situation as well, because if they're going for one, it makes it a bit cheaper to go for 2 and 3 and 4, etc. But if they're only going to go for one man, it makes it very difficult or very expensive for them to do it. So I can see why they might not have supported one rider to go from the team side of things. And I can also see why each, like Tomac and Deegan, potentially wanted each other to be there to try and make it a valuable team to potentially go and win. But I still believe that this team that they've got, Sexton, Plessinger, Hymas, is a potential winning team. But they've got a lot of work to do over there in Britain, and weather can play a big factor. So we'll have to wait and see. The thing with the nations is you just don't know anything about the nations until the event is basically finished. And you'll find out the winners at that point, because up until that last corner, you can never know who's going to be where in the finishing order. So it'll be interesting to see. And obviously us here, Australian over here, the Australian team is looking pretty good, particularly with now Jet Lawrence being back on the bike. We're going to have Jet, Hunter Lawrence. We just got to keep an eye out on Kyle Webster's fitness after that little mishap at the final round of the Australian AusPro MX, where he had a minor injury that sort of slowed him up. Ideally, he's dealing with that and over that really quickly. He should be in America. We're not sure where he is up to at the moment post that injury there. Excuse me. But we should have a very good team there. So there's going to be a bunch of strong teams at this Nations. This could be a very, very impressive Nations to be watching here in October. All right, something different we're going to mention here briefly. We've been having some chats with some local providers or distributors and stuff of different brands here. Hopefully in the short term, we'll be able to talk a bit more about these things. But there's one thing that's coming up that's caught my eye from all the different brands and stuff. That's a very cool thing, and it's actually local to myself. I'm up in the Newcastle region, and we've got a track here called The Ranch. Now, 9/27 day for Maxima is the unofficial birthday of Maxima, and they've actually, in recent years, it's only a couple of years now, I think it's 3 or 4 that they've been doing this here in Australia. They've been doing it a lot longer in America, but we've actually got a dedicated ride day here in the Australian scene, and it's happening at The Ranch. Now, obviously, it's for 2-stroke riders only. You've got to bring out that old 2-stroke. 927 is a 2-stroke product. So they want to, there's a chance to come out, have a ride day. Now, this year, that's a Friday. It's the 27th of September. We'll turn that date around for the Australians to make it make sense for everybody. So it's the 27th of September. It's the last Friday of the month at The Ranch. Now, if you're local like me, you should be getting yourself there, particularly if you've got an old 2-stroke in the shed. Get it out, clean it up over the next few weeks, sign up for the event. The sign-up details and links and that are in the show notes, so check that out. You'll be able to join in. Now, they do have a cap, so they might already be full. I was speaking to the guys there at We Are Lusty who do the Maxima distribution. They had a full packet of people last year. They maxed out their rider numbers when they were at Cessnock, I think it was. This year at The Ranch, they have the same 150 riders. So if you want to get into this thing, get in quick. They may only have a handful of positions left by the time you're hearing this, seeing this. But we just wanted to promote that because it's something that I thought was just cool that we have the availability of this here in Australia now as well. So hopefully I'm going to get my old RM125 out of the shed and go and do a bit of ning. So we'll see how that all rocks out. All right. Now, a little bit of a sponsor read. Let's jump into it. What do the factory teams from Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha have in common? Good question, David. What do they have in common? They use either KYB or Showa suspension, and they service them with genuine parts. Now, KYB and Showa have an Australian distributor as well, and that's Technic Motorsport in Sydney. Now, why would you use non-genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumables when these genuine parts are available, perform better, and are usually only 1 day away? TechnicMotorsport.com is the place to go for your genuine KYB and Showa parts, from seals to fork tubes to individual components and A-kit suspensions. For full A-kit suspension set from Showa and KYB, Technic have them in stock. Use the Find My Bike tool on their website to see compatible parts, and don't forget, new parts are always being added on that site. It's growing ridiculously. Not in Australia, that's okay. Technic has a currency converter and a shipping calculator on their site, and they ship daily with DHL to most countries. So you can use Technic no matter where you are in the world. Thanks to TechnicMotorsport.com. Check them out if you want any suspension components at all. All right, let's move down. Now, I'm going to see if this is going to work, because this is one of my first test points to see if our little fancy deck over here is going to do the link up correctly. So let's see what happens.
The emergency department, all the injuries, all the gory details, and when they'll be back on track. It's the list you really don't want to be on.
If you didn't hear it, that was the emergency department intro. Hopefully you all heard it. I'm just not sure how this is working. This is the first time, like I said. Now, we are going to get into the depths of these injury returns. Now, there's been plenty of injuries that have left these guys on the sidelines in the season. But unlike past years, ever since this Super Motocross thing has come into play, riders are actually coming back late in the season because they want to get healthy again, fit again, to be a part of this Super Motocross, because they're obviously financially incentivized, and there's a chance of another championship #1 plate to put on their wall. So why wouldn't they be there? So there's plenty of guys coming back. Now let's get into the few notes. Now, we usually start with just some general notes from people that weren't necessarily out, they haven't missed any races, and they're not going to return as such because they never missed a race. So we'll start there. Let's talk through them. We've got Dylan Ferrandis, the number 14 on that Phoenix Honda. If you recall that Ironman motocross race, the last race we've had 2 weeks ago, he went down in the first turn very hard. He injured his neck and thumb, and that meant he was out for the rest of the day. Now, he is back in action, and he will be at Charlotte for this opening round of SMX. Colt Nichols, the 45 that switched over to HEP Suzuki in recent weeks, had a decent crash at Budds Creek and was still feeling the effects of that at Ironman, and that led him to sit out Moto 2 as a bit of a safety precaution and a chance to get himself, fully right by the time we rolled into this Charlotte round. So he is ready to go as well, but they're the two updates from those guys and that are part of the Super Motocross series that weren't necessarily missing from action at all. Now, riders that are apart, again, this is a bit of a different list, this show, because obviously it's all focused onto the guys that are going to be a part of Super Motocross or would have been a part of Super Motocross but are now out. So the out list that would have been a part of Super Motocross. Dylan Swartz, the number 40 on the Barrick Suzuki. He's had a rough go in 2024. He had a decent wrist forearm fracture prior to Supercross. Had a lot of work done to get that right. He came back for motocross, but it's had ongoing issues with it. It actually meant that he had to have some further cleanup work done partway through the season around Washougal. That caused an infection to happen. Unlucky for Dylan at that point, but he still managed to ride through the season. But rather than going the extra couple of races, he's sitting out because he needs some time to let that recover. He might even need some further work done. We're not sure on those details at this point, but he is out for Super Motocross. The other one is Daxton Bennick, the number 59 from Star Racing Yamaha. Not overly clear. And as you all know, if you're watching Moto, you know that guys hide injuries and health issues and stuff to continue racing on. They don't want to give away lots of details what's going on. So this one isn't overly clear, but he did race a ride at Ironman. He didn't race. He qualified 22nd, but then didn't partake in the motos at all. But as per the Blue Crew official Instagram page and some updates elsewhere, so we've seen Daxton's having some health issues. He's going to take the time to get his health better. So The quote from him is that he's been dealing with some health issues for the last month or so, and hasn't felt like himself at all lately. Unfortunately, he'll be missing the Super Motocross finals, but it's important we put my health first so I can perform at the best for the 2025 Supercross season. So ideally, he's just getting himself healthy. It is a bummer because he's potentially missing out on a few $1,000s here in Super Motocross, but that's what it is. He's not in a position to compete. All right, returning. Now, this is probably the most returns of top-notch guys in one hit that you will ever get until next year's Super Motocross Round 1. So, excuse me, I haven't talked this much in one hit. Usually when I record the podcast and we're not live streaming it, I take a couple of breaks in the middle, have a drink, but I'm just working my way through this. One-man bando, remember, over here, all happening. Now, 450 class, returning for Super Motocross. Obviously, we're going to kick off with Jet Lawrence, the number one. He will make his return from a thumb injury sustained prior to Redbud. He had that UCL injury, that part inside the thumb here. He's had that repaired. He's been back on the bike for about 3 weeks. Now, in comparison to Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac, who had basically the same injuries earlier in the year during Supercross, they had about a month longer to recover and return to racing. Now, everyone's going to compare that and think that Jet's not going to be ready as much as they were, and they didn't have good results when they came back. Now, I'm going to throw a couple of things out here that might be a little bit left of center and might not be the thought process of the other people. But Jet Lawrence is 21. Eli Tomac is in his 30s. Cooper Webb is, if he's not 30, he's damn close. Eli Tomac, I've said this for a little while now. Since that Achilles injury, I feel like he's not necessarily at the peak of his powers and potentially on the downcline of his career. And I also spoke about the fact that I thought that he wasn't going to win a Supercross this year. And I feel like he only got that because of that moment with, I think it was when Barsha took accidentally, on purpose, whatever, ran into Jet and teed him up, unfortunately. I think that was that round, if I'm remembering this correctly. So he sort of got a gimme on that side of things. But that age, that fact of that natural decline of your career at a certain point, and the fact that it's just he's got family matters and stuff to focus on as well, not just purely recovery, makes his thing a little bit more difficult. Now, similar for Cooper Webb. Now, Cooper was having a banter Supercross year when this then kicked in. But again, he has family concerns that he has to deal with. He also has, he's an older age. And when he returned, his results being a bit lower and that re-aggravation that he sustained at Unadilla, he's also not that big on, ever since 450s, he's not been that great outdoors. So I don't read too much into that. Jet Lawrence is a very different character at this point in his career. Young, healthy, nothing else going on but chance to focus on recovery. And knowing that he's the defending champ and the amount of money that he can potentially win from it, I think he's severely motivated. I feel, and I could be wrong, but I feel he's going to be well and truly ready to go at Charlotte. We could be wrong, but I just got a feeling that he's been on this bike a lot longer than he might even tell you he has been, or that we all know he has been. And I just feel he's going to be a lot better and potentially winning first round, and if not, going damn close to, which would be enough because remember, last year he came into the series in third in the rankings and went 8th at the first round. He's coming in 6th this year in the rankings. If he does anything better than 8th, he's potentially, if he's like 5th and better, he's at the same point as he was last year when he won it. Do you see my point? He's a different kettle of fish. He's potentially about to prove that he is not human in all of this side of things and that he is in fact an alien. So let's just see how that all plays out. But that's my point of view of it all. It's a different take from what I've heard in the media this week. But that's my physio background coming into play here about the recovery positions that he's in versus those other two guys. Now, we spoke about Cooper Webb. He is up back this race as well after that aggravation at Unadilla. He should be good to go. But hopefully for him, it was just scar tissue that he ripped and he doesn't have somewhat instability going on there. Things that they might do, both Jet, both Cooper, and even Eli still, they may be taping these thumbs to try and give them extra support and protection. Be curious to see if Jet has anything strapping on there or Cooper or Eli at this round. I'm not that we're going to be able to find that out too easily, but I'd be interested to see if that's on there when they take their gloves off on the podium or something. I'd be interested to see if there's something on there supporting it. The last one for the 450 class is Justin Barsha, that 51 on the Gas Troy Lee Designs. Now, Justin had 2 knee injuries that were built up over time throughout the beginning of motocross, and he rode Southwick, but then he decided that he'd take the time off with the idea in his mind that he would be back in time for Unadilla. Given that the injuries didn't require any surgery, he just needed rest. Well, that didn't happen the way he planned, and he ended up missing the remaining outdoor season. He wasn't able to get back on the bike until right at the end of this motocross season there. So his race fitness is going to be a little bit questionable. How much recovery he got in those knees. Did he get all the way 100%? We'll find out when we hear more from him during press conferences and stuff happening probably tomorrow. So we'll have to see how that all rolls through. But it'll be interesting to see how Justin goes. I dare say he's going to be around that 10th position, maybe a little bit higher at round 1, but I suspect that he'll be a lot better come round 2 and 3. Moving into the 250 class, it's Joe Shimoda, the number 30 on that HRC Honda. He's got the tightest turnaround of all of these injuries. He was the last man to get injured in this list and be able to make his way back. Collarbone fracture at Unadilla, as we all saw. He was chasing down that lead position and crashed out of it. He had surgery on it. He has basically only gotten back on the bike this week, so very limited time on it. He will be strong. He won't have much pain. He'll be at a bit more of a risk if he tips over on it because it'll still be a little bit fragile. The bone won't have solidified completely by this point, despite the plate. The plate will help, but there's still risk associated with this because the majority of doctors out there would tell him not to get back on the bike until 6 weeks, which is fair. But professional athletes here, they've got a different timeline and a different process and pain tolerance and all that sort of stuff. So it's not unusual. Cody Schock did this in 1 week earlier during Supercross. For Joe to do this at about 4 weeks, it's plenty fine. But he will be back. But again, he'll be probably one that's be a lot better come round 2. Nate Thrasher's back. He had a issue with a previously broken collarbone where he had a plate inserted. Prior to Hangtown this year in motocross, he fell off and bent the plate and broke the bone as well. So he managed to ride Hangtown with all that before he realised that it was actually broken and a problem. But he's had surgery to remove the old plate, straighten out the bone, put in a new plate. And just that process takes a lot longer to repair from than just a normal, I broke it once and put a plate in. So that can be sort of 4 weeks, but his situation is going to be more like an 8-week return. And that's where he's up to. So he's been riding for a couple of weeks now. He wasn't ready to make a return during the last few motocross rounds, but he is ready to go for Supermotocross. Now, the surprise packet for me. Wasn't sure I was going to see this guy this year. I thought we'd be waiting to see him in 2025 Supercross, and that's Cameron McAdoo, the number 63 on the Pro Circuit Kawasaki. Now, he got injured in Supercross at the end of it and missed his chance at a title. And then when preparing for motocross, had another crash and injured his shoulder and required surgery on the shoulder. Now, I thought he was going to pack this in. But Cameron's been down this road before of getting himself back into shape. He's obviously had a few injuries, had a few big crashes. So he should know what he's doing by now. And he's obviously ready to go. So he is going to be back. Now, he could be a sneaky podium guy in these Supermotocross playoffs. You'll have to see how that plays out for Cameron. But good to see that he's back and he didn't just wait until 2025. Jet Reynolds, another collarbone fracture for this group of people here. It's not uncommon in our sport. Collarbones are pretty easy to do. He also had it surgically repaired. He's had about 5 weeks on the bike, I think it is for him. So he's a little bit better off than Joe, but only marginally. And the last one on our list, Casey Cochran, the number 166, the Rockstar Husqvarna. He sat out Ironman due to some arm injuries, just some cuts that he had, required just some further healing time. They are ready to go. He's back for Supermotocross. All right, so that's our list there for those guys for the return. So, like I said, plenty of riders coming back, and they'll all be up and about and getting on those bikes and feeling it out, making sure that they're all comfy, everything's back in the right position, the pegs are sharp and able to stand on them. Now, speaking of pegs, if you need some pegs for your bike, I've got a set of pegs that you should be looking at, and that's pivot pegs. If you haven't heard of pivot pegs before, you should have by now. It's pivot pegs with a Z.com is the website. They are super wide pegs. They have plenty of grip. They are functional because they pivot, and they actually then allow you to move around on the bike better, reduce the fatigue in your legs, and prevent boot sole wear. They basically just make these things super easy to be on and help you enjoy your ride a lot more. Now, they are available for dirt bikes, pretty much all dirt bikes, but the one area that they're actually sneakily good on, and for everybody that's getting a little bit older out there and starting to move into the adventure bike riding, these things are fantastic for adventure bikes. So check them out, pivotpegs with a Z.com. All right, let's head into the last section of our show here. We're going to do a little update on the weather and how to watch for this weekend in Charlotte. Now, when we talk about viewing times for Charlotte, I'm looking at the SuperMotocross Video Pass, the international viewing app. I'm in Australia. I watch it via that app all the time, and it's a very good process. Now, obviously, jump onto that app if you have it and check the times for your local area. These times I'm about to give you are for the New South Wales, Australia times. Now, for us, Race Day Live is going to start at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday night and run over midnight and into Sunday morning. And the racing isn't going to start until 4:30 a.m. Sunday morning. So it's going to be an early one or an overnight one. Remember, I tell you guys this all the time. You can get up at like sort of 5:36, pull that live feed back to where the first race is and start watching it, and then skip through some of the sections, and you'll catch right up to it by the end of it. And you'll be pretty much done by the time about 8-ish that rolls around. It'll be all done. So it's a way to get through it if you want to go that way rather than getting up so early in the morning. But the video pass is awesome for us international viewers, so check it out that way. Now, weather in Charlotte. Now, this is from the Pro Circuit updates. Their PR has these updates all the time. I used to get my own info. I've just gone to getting the PC stuff. It's pretty good. So I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Now, weather. It's going to be partly cloudy in Charlotte on race day, and it's going to have a low of 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I should have looked these up. That's my error here. And a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, in Australian terminology, let's quickly get that out. I'll get the phone here. And I believe, what do we want? We want 82 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, and that is 27 degrees. So it's not going to be that warm. It's going to be 27, 28. 56 will be, what's 56 going to be? It's going to be pretty chilly. Yeah, it's 13 degrees. So it'll be fine. This is a day race. It'll be all done by about, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, I think it is. So these guys will have no issues with weather-wise. There'll be no fatigue aspect, no overheating aspect. So they'll be able to push pretty hard at this one. All right, now, after all of this, I wonder how our stream's gone. Look, the views and stuff are pretty terrible. I didn't announce that this was going to happen. This is at a time when the Americans are sleeping, and on a Friday night, late on a Friday night in Australia, people are probably already fallen asleep or, kicked back with a few beers at the pub watching a footy. We will try and get to this happening a bit more often in the middle of the week, but this was a first attempt. Hopefully I'll be able to watch this back later on and see that it's got some views finally. And work out some of the issues that I've already figured out from during out this to make it better for the future. We have one stream that we will obviously try and get some interviews as well for the next ones. We'll try and bring them in as well on and have a bit of a video chat with them, but we'll see how we can work all this out. So for now, not a bad first effort. Hopefully it's worked out okay. All right, so I think it's a great show this week. We'll find out if anybody else does. If you think it is, drop us a comment. Say hello. Leave us a like. The chat room's going. I can't see anybody in it. I'm not surprised. Like I said, I didn't expect anybody to be here. I'm just trying to get this thing done to see how it works. But come and be a part of it. Subscribe to the channel. Like it. Be a part of the chat room. If you've got a question while we're going on any of these injuries, you want to know more details on these injuries as we're going through, drop us a comment in the chat box. We'll figure it out. But yeah, this will be cool. We'll move on along a bit from here and we'll see how it all works in. All right. So, great show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, guys and girls. Don't forget, T-shirt orders. We need them. Send an email to info@alwaysmoto.com. Follow us on our social media pages to stay up to date with all things injury in moto. Search Always Moto. Follow and subscribe from there. Subscribe to the podcast feed. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please leave a rating on the podcast app. It makes a lot to us. It helps us get a bit more push and more listeners and more viewers. So, and then in turn lets us get more content. So please leave a rating. And don't forget to check out our written articles over at themotocrossnetwork.com and fullnoise.com.au. We have 2 sources of those things, American and Australian. So check them both out. But that's it. Thanks to the sponsors, Lead Moto Australia, Technic Motorsport, Pivot Pegs, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167 3D Printing for all of the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done tonight. Checked out after dinner and left them all to their own devices. Hopefully they're all fine and in bed to sleep by now. But remember, you've got to be smooth to be fast. Because if you're not, you're probably going to go eat shit and go over the bars. And then I'll be probably seeing you deep in the emergency department. Maybe in the clinic with me putting strapping tape anywhere it can stick. Till next time, thanks for watching.